Shalom. What do most people get wrong about the Ten Commandments? And in fact, that's probably the first thing most people get wrong, just calling it the Ten Commandments, because in the Torah, they're never actually referred to as the Ten Commandments. The correct way to refer to them is actually the 10 Matters in English, or in Hebrew, Aseret Hadvarim. 10 Matters, the 10 most important concepts that were ever spoken or revealed to mankind. So what do most people get wrong about these 10 matters? I'm Moriah ben Avraham. Join me today here on Talmidei Yehovah. We're going to talk about what most people get wrong. If you haven't already done so, hit the like and subscribe button. You can learn a lot about the Torah by following this channel. We want to share with you important truths so that we can collectively return to the covenant and the truth that Yehovah revealed to us through Moshe, Al Pi Yehovah, that means by his own mouth, Al Pi Yehovah, by the hand of Moshe. So let's get into it. Yeah, a lot of people don't really understand these, what they call the Ten Commandments. In fact, there were people with lawsuits trying to get the Ten Commandments hung in courtrooms. There are people who just say, oh yes, I believe in the Ten Commandments. And you know that's not really true. I mean, most of these people don't even keep the seventh day of the week, Shabbat, which is clearly mentioned. It says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is Shabbat. So again, we know already most people who claim that they are adherent and they believe in the Ten Commandments, they really don't when you get down to it. But what about those of us who already are past that point? Those of us who are serious, we genuinely, sincerely, we want to observe these commandments, but still, there's a lot to get wrong. That's what we're going to talk about today. And you know, the first thing that happens is that we get things wrong because we read things out of context. Not just the linguistic context, because many of us, we don't know the Hebrew, and so we can't read it in the original language. But moreover, we miss the actual context of the history that's right there in the text. To understand any part of the Torah, we really need to understand the setting. What was going on around what we're reading? What was the setting in which these 10 matters were spoken? And if we just take the time to do that, we'll have to read chapter 19 of the book of Shemot. In fact, to get the full context, we need to read the whole book of Shemot, but at least chapter 19. And if you read chapter 19, you'd realize that chapter 19 takes place after the children of Israel were brought out of the land of Mitzrayim, that's Egypt, after the 10 plagues happened. And you know the 10 plagues, and the last one was the death of the firstborn of Mitzrayim. And the children of Israel came out of Mitzrayim on the 15th day of the first month in the Hebrew calendar. Okay, and they were brought out, they came through the wilderness, and it took them about, let's say the better part of 3 months. And finally they arrived at the foot of what we would call Har Sinai, in English, Mount Sinai. And once they arrived there, that's when we read what we find in chapter 19. Yes, they arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai, and Yehovah said he was going to meet with them and make a covenant with them. And so what we're reading here when we read chapter 20, and actually the Aseret Hadvarim, the 10 matters, are in chapter 20, and then there's more information that was part of this covenant relationship that Yehovah created with his people that's recounted for us in chapter 20, 21, 22, and 23. And all together, when you look in chapter 24, we find that all of those words make up the Sefer HaBrith, the book of the covenant. So the book of the covenant is the context in which we find these most important matters, the Asereth, that is the 10 Divarim. The Asereth Divarim is the Hebrew word best translated in this case as matters. 10 matters. And they were written, as we all know, on 2 tables of stone. Again, a lot of people, another thing they get wrong is they think that there were 5 on one stone and 5 on another, which actually is not the case. In fact, if you look, you'll find that nobody thought that anciently. There was a rabbi who came up with this idea some 2,000 years ago, and that's why people mistakenly believe that 5 were on one tablet and 5 were on the other, when in fact, all 10 were in each tablet. Each one was a witness. It was like a contract. When you write a contract, you don't give half of the contract to one party and more of the words of the same contract to the other party. No, each party in the agreement has to have an exact copy. And these 2 copies were kept together in the Ark of the Covenant, as it's called. Yeah, these 2 tablets, one representing one for Yehovah and one for the children of Israel, exact copies of each other. Not 5 on one and 5 on the other. But again, what's the point? And what is it that most people end up getting wrong? And the issue is all about whether or not you're in a covenant relationship with Yehovah. You see, if you are not trying to be in a covenant relationship with Yehovah, where you're saying that you are embracing Yehovah as your Elohim, and therefore Yehovah will embrace you as one of his people, if you're not trying to bow down your will and say, yes, from here on out, just like the children of Israel did in chapter 19, we can read that, we'll read that in a second, and they said, whatever you say, we will do. In fact, let's just read that. So, in Shemot chapter 19, verse 1, it says, in the 3rd month, after the sons of Israel had gone out of the land of Mitzrayim, on that very day, they came into the wilderness of Sinai. Now, just skipping down, verse 3, and Moshe went up to Elohim, and Yehovah called to him from the mountain, saying, this is what you shall say to the house of Yaakov and tell the sons of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the sons of Israel. So Moshe came down and called the elders of the people and set before them all these words which Yehovah had commanded him. And what did the people say? How did the people respond when they heard these words? Then all the people answered together and said, all that Yehovah has spoken, we will do. You see, if you're not in the same mindset as the children of Israel, then you're not really in the context to understand what the Asereth Hadvarim are all about. In fact, if you take a look at how the Asereth Hadvarim begin, they start off by talking about the fact that I am Yehovah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of slavery or bondage. These words are for those who are in a covenant relationship with Yehovah. Now, I want to go back to just the idea then. once we understand that context, that this is all about being in a covenant relationship with Yahweh, I want to really focus on that first matter. A lot of people don't even realize that there's a lot of confusion even around how these matters are even numbered. But without digressing and getting into, the issue of how we number these matters, I want to focus on what's most important. I want you to get the point. So let's look at the first of these matters again more closely. Notice it says, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. I'm going to read that for you in Ivrit. Anochi Yahweh Elohecha. One of the biggest things that most people get wrong is that they think that the first matter is all about having a supreme being. Most people think, well, it doesn't matter what we call him. Oh, I don't know Hebrew, so I'm free to read this in English or whatever other language you may be speaking when you're listening to this, and you just feel that's okay. But is it? I mean, we're talking about an Elohim who took the time to change Avram's name from Avram to Avraham. Is it okay to call Yahweh by just whatever we feel? And is this a commandment about just having a supreme being? Or is it very important that we make sure we're worshiping the right one? See, most people don't even stop to consider that. Why? Because most people are deceived and think that we live in a world in which idolatry really doesn't exist. We have been swept away by the influence of Greek thought and Greek philosophy, which went from a polytheistic nature. Remember the great pantheon the Greeks had and the Romans, and they worshiped so many different idols. Where did all those idols go? Where did all those Greek gods go to? What happened to them? Oh, you know what happened? They began to emphasize an idea of monotheism in which they began to reason, just human reason, that there really couldn't be multiple Elohim. There could only be one. And so whatever you worship has to be the same one. Hence, most people just think, oh, it doesn't matter what you call them, doesn't matter what you worship. There's only one Elohim, so you got to be worshiping the right one. And I'm sorry, but nothing could be further than the truth. Everybody isn't worshiping the same Elohim. If you're not worshiping Yahweh, you're simply not worshiping Yahweh. If you're worshiping a different idea, a different concept, that's not Yahweh. You see, this idea that there's only one Elohim sounds like it's true. Because in truth, Yahweh is the only true Elohim. He is the creator of heaven and earth. That's why the prophet Yeshayahu said, I am Yahweh, there is none else, there is no Elohim beside me. Yes, we understand that there's only one true Elohim. His Shem, though, is Yahweh. But that doesn't negate what we're reading here in the first of these Divarim and in the second of these Divarim, the second matter, which is you shall have no other Elohim before me. People have made other things their Elohim. People have worshipped all manner of things. This is why when Yahweh began to work with the children of Israel through Moshe, and Moshe went to Pharaoh, remember the burning bush, and Moshe said, well, what's your name? And he said, my name is Yahweh. This is my name for all generations. You remember that? Well, after that, Moshe was sent to Pharaoh. And it says, and after Moshe and Aharon came and said to Pharaoh, this is what Yahweh, the Elohim of Yisrael, says. Let my people go so that they may celebrate a feast to me in the wilderness. But Pharaoh said, who is Yahweh? That I should obey his voice and let Yisrael go. I do not know Yahweh. And besides, I will not let Yisrael go. Now, did Pharaoh not believe in spirit beings and superpowers? Yes, he did. He believed in Elohim. He just didn't believe that Yahweh was the Elohim. He didn't have a connection with Yahweh. He didn't even know who Yahweh was. He was worshiping the wrong Elohim. And Yahweh said he was going to execute judgments against all the Elohim of Mitzrayim. So yes, there were other Elohim, other idols, powers, whatever you want to call them. You see, the Greeks have made people think that, there's nothing else that is truly Elohim, so therefore there are no other Elohim. There are no idols. But that's not true. There are idols. And we need to avoid the idols. And if you're going to be in the context of understanding what these Aseret Advarim are about, the very first thing you need to do is enter into a covenant relationship with the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. You have to actually start worshiping Yahweh. That's what the Aseret Advarim are all about. It's about being in a covenant relationship with Yahweh, the Elohim who created the heavens and the earth. You see, people started worshiping all manner of things. People started worshiping ideas. Like just like today, people worship money, right? And what's written on the money? In God we trust. Watch the series I did on top idols to avoid. Because most people aren't aware that God is an idol. God is a concept of fortune personified, worshipped anciently, and called God anciently, even in Hebrew. Yes, it's there in Joshua 13, verse 5. You can look it up yourself. People worship the concept of fortune as God. We're not supposed to worship God. God's an idol. Yeah, a lot of people today worship the universe. It's not that they don't want to bow down to a higher power, but, something good happens in their life and they say the universe. The universe? Really? What do you mean by that? Do you mean the stars, time and chance, the Big Bang? Is it all about people say things not even thinking it through. Like, what do I really mean when I say the universe? The universe did nothing. The universe is something that Yahweh created. It didn't do anything on its own. We got to give the credit where the credit is due. Yahweh created the universe. If something great, wonderful, fantastic happens in your life, don't give that credit to idols. See, that's what these Aseret Hadvarim are all about. It's about returning to giving that credit to Yahweh, the Elohim of heaven and earth, who created it all, and the one who is actually the only true Elohim. That's why Yahweh went on to say, you shall not make for yourself an idol, a fesel, right? Or any likeness of what is in heaven above, or in the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. You shall not worship them nor serve them, for I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am a jealous Elohim. And again, I just want to pause for 1 second here. You'll find some translations don't want to use the word jealous. Why? Because of Greek thought. Because in Greek thought, jealousy is an anthropomorphism. In Greek thought, this supreme idea of Elohim cannot be jealous. That's not the Elohim of the Torah. That's not the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The Elohim that we worship, that we're called to be in covenant relationship with, this Elohim, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, says, I am a jealous Elohim, inflicting the punishment of the fathers on the children, on the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing favor to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. These words of the covenant are not about worshiping a general idea about a superior being. They are not about worshiping the Greek idea of Elohim or the Roman idea, the 10 matters, what are commonly thought of incorrectly as the 10 commandments. are all about worshiping Yahweh, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, whose Shem is Yahweh. In closing, let's look at the book of Jonah. At the beginning, we read in this book how Jonah tried to flee from Yahweh. He was sent on a mission, and he didn't want to do this mission. He didn't want to warn the people of Nineveh, about the impending destruction that Yahweh was going to bring on them. So instead of going there, he thought of them as his enemy. He fled. He jumped on a ship, was trying to get away as far as he could, go to Tarshish. But Yahweh, as you know, created a storm. And in short, everyone on the ship began to pray. But to whom? Then the sailors became afraid. And every man cried out to his Elohim. And they hurled the cargo which was in the ship and into the sea to lighten it for them. Notice, everybody began to pray, not to Yahweh. Everybody didn't worship the same Elohim. Some people started praying to fortune, time and chance, to God, if you will. Others were praying to some other name that they called on. Who knows, right? Zeus, Dieu, whatever. All manner of idols they started calling on. But Jonah, it says, had gone below into the stern of the ship, had lain down and fallen sound asleep. Now, the people, were upset when they found out. So the captain came to him and said, "How is it that you are sleeping? Get up and call on your Elohim. Perhaps your Elohim will be concerned about us so that we will not perish." See, nobody in that time period was under the false illusion that everybody worshiped the same being. Everybody knew that there were, people worship different things. So then they said, well, look, let's just cast lots to figure out on whose account this is all happening. When they found out the lot fell on Jonah, then they said to him, "Tell us now, on whose account has this catastrophe struck us? What is your occupation? And where do you come from? What is your country? And from what people are you?" And Jonah said, and I want to read it first in Hebrew because I really want you to feel the sense of how Jonah responded to this question. Vayomer Alehem, Ivri Anochi, Ve'ef Yahweh Elohei Hashemayim Ani Yareh, Asher Asa Eth Hayam Ve'ef Hayabasha. Yes, Jonah said to them, Ivri Anochi. In other words, I am a Hebrew. Ivri Anochi. I am a Hebrew. And then he said, Ve'ef Yahweh Elohei Hashemayim Ani Yareh. In other words, he said, and Yahweh, the Elohim of the heavens, I fear. And that's just another way of saying, that's the one I'm in a covenant relationship with. That's the one I bow down to. That's the one I worship. Yes, I yield to whatever he is. He is the supreme authority. There's a video we have on this channel about the meaning of the word Elohim. It means the strongest revealed authority. If it's the strongest revealed authority, it means that you bow your head to that one. Jonah is saying, this is the one. Yahweh is the one I bow my head to. I'm in a covenant relationship with Yahweh, the one who created the sea and the dry land. And so, if you don't understand that the Aseret HaDvarim are all about being in a covenant relationship with Yahweh, not a general idea of Elohim, but a very specific Elohim, then I suggest that you actually missed the entire point. We need to start with the context. The context is about being in covenant relationship with Yahweh. That's the context. That's why it starts the way it starts. That's why it starts with saying, Anochi Yahweh Eloheka, your Elohim. And if we get that point, then I think we're really ready to understand all the points that really matter. Shalom, shalom.